Hello and welcome back to Claret and Blue podcast. We've got a big Ron bumper special. We tantalised you a little bit the other day with talking about the memories of the 1994 success, and now we're with Ron where we can go through. We're going to take it, rather than doing it chronologically, we're going to go randomly talking about different topics, and I'm sure Ron's got some well told stories from his time then. So thanks again, Ron. As I've just said there, we might jump out a little bit, but I just want to try and get your sense of some of the things that me as a Villa fan that resonate. You know, back then in the mid-90s, I was under the misapprehension that Aston Villa won trophies every couple of years, but the fact that we haven't won one since 1996, 94 and 96, I think it just lodges the big Ron era properly into our memory banks, really, because it was such a treat to witness from the stands. So I suppose the first question that I would like to kick off with, and I won't do this chronologically throughout your time at Villa, but I do want to talk back to your first game at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, it was a bit of a tug of war. You arrived at Villa Park under a cloud in terms of Sheffield, having to prize you away from Sheffield Wednesday. The fixture computer, lo and behold, then throws up Sheffield Wednesday away on the first day. You were public enemy number one, weren't you, that day, Ron?
Yeah. The best thing that happened to us that day, in a funny way, was they scored 2 in the first 10 minutes. And I think that all of a sudden the fans thought, hang on a minute, what are we worried about that for? We're going to romp this. And I think we had 8 players that day making debuts. And you'd have thought, our first half performance, you would have thought that I'd picked 6 of them up on the main road and said, do you fancy a game today? We were hopeless, disjointed all over the place, and they were winning 2-0. But right on half-time, we had a corner, and I'd just taken Andy Gray come in with me as number 2. And Andy had been doing a lot of Scottish football when Sky was in its infancy. And he'd sort of said, Chris Woods, who was making his debut, he'd had a bad injury, and he said he's no longer safe on crosses. And I remember our first corner must have come in the 44th minute. And we put the ball in, and we said, if we put one in the middle of the box, Big Cyril, you go and sort it. Just go in and make you some form of physical presence. Well, he went in, and there was a clatter, and the ball got knocked out again for a corner. Same corner came in. All of a sudden, there was only Cyril. The goalie wasn't there. And he scored bang on the stroke of half-time. And I always remember my half-time team talk. I said, they won't know now whether it's stick or bust. Because they've been all over you, and all of a sudden, we're back in the game. So I think if you fancy it now, you've got a chance. But make sure, so long as they don't score again, we can still win it. And we won it with 3 of the most, not unlikeliest goal scorers. Dalian got equalised for us. And Dalian had been an ex-Sheffield Wednesday player. And then right then, they had a corner towards the end. Ball got knocked out, and who do you think was clean through for us? 1-on-1 on their goalie. Steve Staunton, our left back. How that happened, I don't know. And he rifled one past the keeper, and we had a jolly time going home on the...
Do you mind all that though, Ron? Because probably I can imagine it'd be quite tight, the dugout. You'd be people hurling abuse at you. The coach trip into the ground. Is it a bit of pantomime or?
Yeah, we had a laugh. It wasn't that bad, It was just a small group, because I was quite popular with the fans there. And to be fair, I still am. So I think there was just a small group who I think had... It was expected they had to give it all that Judas thing. And I remember Andy Gray, as we were going up the main Hillsborough Road, just short of the stadium, I remember Andy Gray saying, I think I'll move. He was sat next to me. He said, I think I'll move, just in case somebody's got a gun and it's a repeater. I went, behave yourself. And I made sure, I think I was first off the coach.
That was a conscious thing to say, listen, I'm going to own this. This is,
Yeah. And I always remember one of their guys, because we'd had a similar experience when I went back with Sheffield Wednesday to West Brom, when we'd been 1 down with about a minute left, and we scored 2 in the last minute. And I always remember this Sheffield Wednesday official coming up to me after the end of our Villa game, going, "Who writes your scripts?" I do. Yeah.
I was going to probably ask you a couple of things about it, but working under Doug Ellis, I'm sure you've probably trotted out lots of different stories about Doug on the after dinner circuit and different kind of interviews that you've given. Is there one story or one anecdote more than any other that sticks in your mind when somebody mentions Doug to you?
Couple of quickies. The first press conference I ever did at Villa Park, it was rammed. Somebody said it's the biggest press conference they've ever had there, and it was rammed. So, and I knew most of the lads that had all been journos when I was there in the past, like. So somebody asked me a question, and I went, "Well, you know," and I hadn't gone 10 seconds, and Doug interjected, and I went straight away. I went, "I told you before when I took the job, I don't want any interference, and you've started already." And it was a big laugh in there, like, you know. Anyway, the other one, we went pre-season. There'd been a pre-season tour lined up in Germany, and I'm doing a player a day, like signing a player a day. So I'm commuting between Birmingham Airport and Hanover, I think it was Hanover. That's where we were. And I get there, and Doug's out there in a Villa tracksuit. Now, all the time I've never ever, like at Man U, Martin Edwards never came near the training ground. I never see a chairman on. And he stood on the touchline in a tracksuit. So I've gone, Sid Cowan, Sid, practicing set plays, and Doug's over there with the coach driver. "Doug, do us a favour, mate. Come in the wall." He loved it. Yeah, try it out. He's in the wall. Him and the coach driver wanted to. Sid said, "What do you want me to pull?" I said, "I want you to pull your foot back and just miss his left ear." I said, "And we won't see him on a training ground again." And that was that. Doug was good at pointing the ground. Villa Park is, in many ways, a great ground. A lot of that's a tribute to him.
Yeah.
What he wanted to do, he wouldn't leave. In fact, one of the things when he got rid of me, he accused me of spending too much time at the training ground. And I thought, well, I don't want to keep coming to your office every afternoon and listening to your yacht and listening to stories about your yacht. But if he'd have stayed that side, a lot of people thought, and I never ever called him in public, you know. I'd tell him to his face. Yeah. But a lot of people assumed, and but I can always remember we got beat at Liverpool in the FA Cup 6th round, which I thought we were going to win that year. And after the game, he was wondering about the car park at Anfield. Nobody with him. And I actually thought for a fella in his position, he was quite a lonely man, you know. He didn't have an awful lot of friends, and his social life was not what he'd have liked it to have been, you know. That's what I will say. If I put a proposition to him regarding players, and we had the money, he'd back it.
Yeah. You mentioned Villa Park being a magnificent stadium, and Doug putting in some of the groundwork initially to make sure that was the case. Talk us through, and I'm biased because I kind of grew up on the Holt End, if you like. Yeah. Talk us through that place when it's bouncing, you know, in terms of atmosphere and in terms of, I suppose, the beautiful architecture as well. There's been a debate at the moment amongst fans. Will Villa ever need to leave Villa Park to truly kick on and join the elite? How do you sum up Villa Park and your experience of it?
I think it's a phenomenal stadium. It's, what's the phrase? It should be
like listed or something.
Listed monument.
Yeah,
should be, because although it's an old stadium, it doesn't look old.
Yeah.
It's well maintained. You know, now Goodison Park, for example, which you maybe can compare it to in terms of history and whatever. Goodison Park it's going.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, they got to get a new stadium, but it's going. Villa Park's not like that at all. Villa Park, whenever I've been in any section of also how well maintained, how well kept it was, how, and it's unique, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. And the Holt end, I don't know if you remember, that was one of the little things with Doug. I don't know if you remember when I was going to sign Dean Saunders. What happened? I agreed, not this house up the road we used to have. I had Dino there all afternoon. Done deal. Agreed everything with Graham Souness at Liverpool. And the same day and it dragged on, and it was Doug was trying to chip them all the while.
Yeah.
And Peter Robinson, their chief executive, was a top jolly in terms of he dealt with all the big hitters in the game. He wasn't going to give way. And it dragged on. Now, I'm a great believer when things drag on, they tend not to happen. Dino's ringing me every day. Souness is ringing me every day. Because Souness was thinking then of changing his mind and getting rid of Rushy.
Yeah.
He had to get rid. It was the time when you're only allowed so many non-English or British-born players. And he had the quandary with Rush and Dino. On the Friday, I think it was Tom Ross on BRMB. Tom Ross had a right guard, Doug. We were playing Crystal Palace. That was right. We were playing Crystal Palace on the Saturday. And Tom Ross had a right guard him. Come on, get this done. The fans, the phone in and all that, and having a go. So Doug rang me. He said, "What is the deal with Saunders? This is Saturday. I'm driving down." I said, "It's exactly the same as it was 2 weeks ago. But if we don't do it, it's not going to be done. I can tell you now." He's playing him this afternoon. They were playing Chelsea, I think, Liverpool. He's playing him, and he only needs to score a hat-trick or something, and the deal will be off. Right, he said, "We'll do the deal." So then Doug rang Robinson and said, we'll do the deal after the games today. And I'm driving down. I rang Steve Stride. I said, "You know what? If we're getting beat, or if we're not winning, the fans will start having a go at Doug."
Yeah.
And I think players only need the slightest deflection. So that's when, I don't know if you remember, I said to Steve, "Get me a mic, I'll go and tell the fans what's happening." And I went to the Holt End that day and said, "Look, do us a favour, get behind us today, because I'm telling you, the deal's done and he's coming." And we won 3-0, we beat Palace 3-0, and we didn't play very well. Yeah. And we started off quite badly. And I think if the issue had been going on, the fans they wouldn't have turned on the team, but they'd have started having a go at, and that's a deflection. Yeah. I don't think you give players the chance to have any deflections.
What did Steve say when you asked him for the mic? Did Doug know you were going to come on the pitch and do that?
Steve must have told him, yeah. And he went down, the fans loved it, and they and they saw us through it, because we didn't play that well, but we won 3-0.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we thought you were going to come on and sing when we saw you walking towards the altar. Is that a little bit of? I mean, obviously that was the way that you can see the idea to doing that was tactical in the sense that
get the fans on board,
to get the fans on side. But was there a bit of showman in there as well, or not? Or
not really. I just felt, you see it sometimes when. I think we did something similar once at Sheffield, not quite the same lines as that. But if you involve the fans and get them backing you, then it's it's better than all. Like with from memory of that game, the first 20 minutes or so, we didn't start off that well. And you'll hear groans and moans, and it transmits. Now, we never got that. We just got the fans behind us all match. Now, I think that was the big thing about it. It was basically the serious. In the midweek, we'd been beaten by Tottenham in a game that if Dean Saunders had been there, we would have won. Okay. And I thought the last thing we want is to drop any more points today.
Yeah. Did you feel like that throughout your reign at Villa, though, you generally had that kind of warmth and support of Villa Park? I always
felt that. I still do with the fans. If I see Villa fans now, I get on great with them. Yeah. I probably know. I know this sounds daft. I probably know more about the Villa than anybody else because I'm going back now 200 years. The first game I ever saw was Aston Villa against Birmingham.
Yeah.
First game, 1948. And, and then I was with them as a young player, and then subsequently I've known about Villa all through my life, really.
What years was your little stint there as a youngster?
I was there I went there, I was at Wolves as a kid on the ground staff, and then I actually got tapped up to go to Villa. I was at the Villa from 57, I'm going to say, till 1960 or 59, 60, yeah.
So you got a bit of it in your DNA then, really?
Yeah, but I was part-time. That was slightly regret. I went part-time. My dad said, all right, you'll have to have a trade if you're going to do that. Yeah.
A bit of a random one, but Dino's debut when we beat Liverpool 4-2.
That was his home debut.
Yeah, home debut.
Yeah.
Scored away at Leeds, didn't he, I think, as well. His home debut. I don't know whether it's a random thing to ask. I can't remember you ever commenting on the Ronnie Rosenthal miss before. Can you still picture it in your mind's eye?
Oh, right. Anybody in training that missed the goal, are you Ronnie Rosenthal? But in all fairness to Ronnie, him, if you ever look at that, on today's pitches, which are carpets, he'd have just side-footed. He didn't like Foden did the other night when he just wrapped it in. But that just stood up just as he went to side-footed. And he probably hit that with his ankle bone, I should think, when it went over.
He
hit the bar, didn't he?
Yeah, bounced off the bar,
Yeah.
I can't imagine you being that sympathetic if Dino or Dalian had done it down the other end.
Well, I wouldn't, but but he did make history, didn't he, Ronnie?
In terms of your time at Villa, one of my memories is that on Match of the Day, Villa would always have one or two goals in Goal of the Month. And I don't know if you remember the tune by the Lightning Seeds, The Life of Ryder. They used to play that over the back of it. And whenever I hear that song now, it always reminds me of the Goal of the Month competition on Match of the Day in the early 90s. What's your favourite goal that your Villa team scored during that period?
I'll tell you what, one might be. I know but one might be the last goal at Tranmere. The goal that made it 3-1.
Yeah, Dalian's last minute, what we thought was a consolation, but actually proved to be a...
In our dressing room, we could overhear their dressing room. They were sick. You'd have thought they'd lost the game. Yeah. If you'd have said to Johnny King before the game, you're going to beat Villa 3-1, he'd have been on springs. But because they were 3-0, two of which I'm convinced with VAR were offside anyway.
You got to let it go, Ron.
I know. It doesn't bite anyway. But when Dalian scored, our dressing room was bubbly. And we've just been beaten 3-1, and we were bubbly, because we're looking at it logically and think, if we beat them 2-0 now, we're through.
Yeah.
And we'll beat them. Well, and then Dalian did it again, the same scenario. But the semi-final, we talk about games of one of the great games in my career. Talk about the best games in my career. One was at West Brom when we beat Man U 5 at Old Trafford. Another was at Old Trafford when we beat Barcelona with Maradona 3-0 to come from a 2-0 deficit. But I've never been involved in a game like the second leg of the Tranmere match. A game, you talk about every emotion going through the game. I mean, after about, I'm going to say half an hour, we're 2-0 up. And you think there's only one winner here. Then Buzzy might have got sent off, or probably should have done. They get a penalty, there you go, it comes to 2-1. And then we're scrapping. And I always remember Liam O'Brien, one of their players, who I'd actually signed at Man U, hitting a shot that hit our post and ran all along the goal line and more or less touched the other post behind Buzzy.
Making me nervous, you're just talking about it now.
And you go, and then the penalties. And my standout moment in the penalties was, and we laugh about it now, but whenever I see him, was Kingy. Kingy was walking down, and he's whistling. I think Dino was, because he'd taken
that's the Inter Milan game, wasn't it? The King one. Are you?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. We'll come to that in a minute.
You're right. Because just Kingy coming down the field.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll ask you about that one in a minute. In terms of so that goal that Dalian scored at Prenton Park, in terms of importance, what about in terms of easy on the eye? In terms of the most beautiful goal that your Villa team scored?
I'll tell you where he's a bit unlucky. Do you remember the goal? If you're looking at goals, you got to take the Wimbledon.
Yeah.
But the great pity about that was, it wasn't in an Anfield or somewhere with the big surroundings.
Yeah.
Because they'll still be showing it every day now.
Yeah.
And Dino tells it well. Dino broke out. It was a corner the other end. We broke out from a corner from against us. And as he's running the ball, Dino's running alongside him shouting, give it, Dino, Dalian. Oh, what a... And the only other person I've ever heard say that, I heard it, I was in a thing with Dennis Law once, and he was on about a goal Bestie does. When Bestie went past about 6 players, and he said, I'm running alongside him screaming for it.
I reckon Dino probably claims credit for the decoy run then, does he? That opened it up.
I don't know how Dino caught him up. Must have done well, yeah. But in terms of a goal that... And then the funny thing was when they run and got the umbrella afterwards.
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's an iconic celebration, that is, isn't it? The fella who rocks on with the umbrella. That is the
only thing about it. I wish that had been in one of the great stadiums,
Yeah. Just on Dalian, he was capable of that, wasn't he? For a big, strong footballer who had all the attributes physically, actually got quite a lot of kind of panache about him as well, hadn't he?
He did. If we were playing Liverpool, Man U, anybody, never bothered. You never bothered about it. And yet if we went to Exeter in the cup and things like that, you thought, has he come down today or something like that? And because I had him at Sheffield Wednesday, and we sold him to Real Sociedad for what was then quite big money. I think he got 2 against Real Madrid in a game. And he got a hat-trick or something against Barca. I don't think he scored against anybody else. He goes to Fenerbahce. Yeah, Dino went to Galatasaray, didn't he? He goes to Fenerbahce, and they're playing Galatasaray. And apparently the president there, or the president's son, says, Dalian, you get hat-trick. You get 2 today. You can pick any car you like. He's got a hat-trick after 15 minutes, Don't think he scored again all season. Unbelievable. And,
who do you think, Ron, during your time as Villa boss, who do you think was probably the most unsung hero or unappreciated? I mean, I'll give you who I think, and whether you agree or not. I think Kevin Richardson was such an important player for you, but he was almost so efficient. When you don't fully, or a football fan wouldn't fully appreciate the contribution that he makes.
I was asking Steve Staunton the other day, a few weeks ago, about the best team he'd played in. And he's played, don't forget, he was at Liverpool with some top jollies and all that. And he picked Kevin in central midfield. I said, well, that's great. Kevin was one of those you take for granted. I had one at Manchester United, Arthur Albiston, the left back, and you just picked him. He's your left back for the season, and you get 7, 8 out of 10 every week. Yeah, and you're in the team, and I don't talk to you. You just do what you do, What
was he like because I mean, he obviously won the cup, lifted the cup for you. I think he'd won the league, hadn't he, at Arsenal and at Everton? Yeah,
cup winner.
You made him your captain in a dressing room full of some big personalities where, to me, I've never met Kevin Richardson, but I sense that he wasn't as loud as some of that people in the dressing room.
He's a moaner. We had 2 groups at the Villa. We had the Jolly Boys, and I used to call them the moaners, the official moaners. There was, Kevin was number 1 moaner. The Grumpies, yeah. Steve Staunton would be in there. Teely would half be in there. There was somebody else. Ray Houghton. Might have been Ray Houghton. But they were, they were, And the others were like Daly and Yorkie, jolly boys, Dino, jolly boys.
Did that make Richardson a good captain then? Because by moaning, did that mean he got super high standards, or he just liked to whinge anyway?
Well,
or?
Was that, but I think everybody just recognised that you never got anything less than he got. He gave you everything he got. And that's all you ask any player, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think he was he was more appreciated. I mean, there's that saying, isn't there? And I suppose he epitomised it. He was a player's player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't ever ask him to take a penalty, though. I said I could have got Jeremy Guscott to do that when he hit the one over the bar. It was at Wimbledon. Huh?
In terms of the signings that you made, or that Doug allowed you to make at Villa, who do you think was your kind of best pound for pound? I suppose Richardson would probably be up there, but who do you think was your best signing?
Well, we got Seeley for 250 grand. So that, he was as good as any left-sided defender.
How did that come about, Ron? Did you have scouts down there on that coast?
I'd seen it. Funnily enough, I'd seen Bournemouth play at Birmingham, of all places, and I'd gone to watch Jamie Redknapp. Yeah. That's who I'd gone to watch. Where was I at the time? I was probably at Sheffield. And I looked at big centre, strong, yeah, impressive. When I went to the Villa, Bournemouth had a major financial problem. And Harry rang me, he said, Ron, we need money quickly. He said, you've seen the centre-half. Give us, I think it was 250, I think we paid for him. I said, well, I do like him. I said, go on, tell me a bit more about him then. And Harry went in and he said, all right, and what I've seen and what you're telling me, yeah, we'll take a punt on him for 250. And so he would be good value for money.
Because you had a flurry, didn't you, in the first summer? I think David Platt left, didn't he? And you got
I was going to keep Platty. He'd come to some sort of an agreement with the Italian team. Yeah. He wanted away. So I said to Andy Gray, I said, let's do it now. We'll do it all now, and then we don't have it hanging over us. A little funny story, and I went in training the week before the team came back. So I went back in because all the apprentices were there. And that was one of the things we used to like to do wherever I've been, is to get the staff team to play the apprentices. Because then you got to know the kids. It doesn't happen so much now. They're set apart. But so they all came in, and we were training down at Aston University while Bodymoor was being done up. So I have the staff team: Jimmy Barron, Paul Barron, Richard Money, Andy Gray, Peter Withard come in, and Cascarino had come in for a week's, try to get fit the week before, so we're playing this game, and most of us could still deal with the ball, and he kept going to Cass, and he kept bouncing up. And I went, so we get a penalty against the kids, and I'm thinking, which corner shall I put this in? And all of a sudden, Cass runs up and kicks it, and the goalie, we had to trialist goalie in from London, who dived forward to save us. And as I walked off the pitch with Andy, we had quite a way back to the dressing room. I went to, we got to get rid of him before anybody sees him play. And we offered him to, and Cass knows the story, we offered him to Wimbledon, who I thought would suit. They wouldn't give me anything like the amount of money we wanted. And now, right out the blue, Liam Brady, Liam Brady, one of the great ball artists of all time. Liam rang me up and offered me the money for him. And I couldn't believe it, honestly. Not Liam Brady, So we and what we did with the money we got for the two of those boys, we more or less built the rest of the team up. I bought Steve Staunton was my first buy, I think. Siddle was my first. Siddle I took on a free from Coventry. Steve Staunton came, then Teeley. Who was next? Kevin Richardson came in with Dalian.
Yeah.
And that was, in many ways, that was an Andy Gray thing, because Andy had played with him at Everton.
Yeah.
And he was full of Rico. So we took them two from Sociedad. With hindsight, once again, I probably should have took John Aldridge as well. Yeah. But I thought Aldo would maybe just come past the post a bit, which he hadn't. He'd done us for a year or two. Yeah. And then we signed, like, Ray Houghton came in a bit later on. Yeah, but that was the first group. And I signed Paul Mortimer, who had seen play very well at Charlton and so forth. And he came and, I don't know, he fell out with the crowd about the fourth game. We beat Luton 4-0. And he scored, and then he made some sort of gesture to the whole team, who'd been giving him a bit of stick. And I thought, you've had it. You can't do that to the... And fortunately that week, Steve Coppell at Crystal Palace came in and gave me more money than I paid for him. So, so that was why Paul left. I thought he's got to go after that.
What year did Andy Townsend come?
Andy came in my last, but Andy came the year we
won the cup.
Yeah. Gary Parker was an early signing. Gary Parker, yeah, he was from Hull. He'd just gone to Hull from Forest. He was one of the early ones, Gary.
So talk us through one player that you inherited, still known as God at Villa Park.
Macca.
Yeah, talk us. I'm going to try. I'll see whether you get to it yourself. But there's a story that you've told me before that I want you to tell me again. But just give us a flavour of what it was like to work with him. Well,
I bought him to England.
Were you the man who got him to United?
Oh, I bought him to United. Yeah. I bought him. I had a choice when I was at United, and now you'd have taken all three. We wanted a young centre half. We got McQueen and Moran. Not McQueen. We had got Kevin Moran, but McQueen and Buchan, who were both coming to the end of their careers. And I was looking for a young centre half. I'd seen a kid, Mark Wright, play for Oxford, and I liked him. I'd seen Derek Mountfield play at Tranmere, and he was in the frame. And then somebody rang me up about this kid playing for St Pat's in Ireland. So I said, well, get him over. Let's have a look at him. And he came over. I thought, oh, yeah, But you were never sure. You knew he got something, but you never quite... Oh, it's not one you... Oh, yeah, no problem. You could see great attributes from him. And certain other things in his game, you go, I'm not sure. Anyway, I paid... in the end, we bought him for 30 grand. 30 grand to give St Pat's in Ireland. And what I do remember about two things. When I'd signed Brian Robson about 2 weeks earlier for what was then a record fee. When we signed Robbo, there was myself, our chairman, his accountant, and somebody else. 4 people in the office. I signed Macca for 30 grand from St Pat's. The place was full. There's his mother, not his mother, all sorts of relations, the manager's uncles, sons. My office was crammed at Old Trafford. And Macca had this earring. He had this earring in. And they all went out. And I said, hey, by the way, get that out. Because I've seen Neil Franklin, I've seen Billy Wright, I've seen John Charles, I've seen all the great centre-halves, and they didn't wear earrings. So get that out.
So when you rock up at Villa, were you pleased to be reunited with him?
Well, yeah. Now I know all the stories. So I'm hearing horrendous stories about when I go to the Villa. And even on pre-season, I think, first of all, and I just read it again recently on holiday, his autobiography is the most emotive I've ever read from a footballer.
Brutal, isn't it, how honest it is?
Yeah. And you start looking at that and thinking, well, those sort of things, he was always battling elements. And when we went on a training trip to, who was it? The same trip, Germany, and because I'm flying backwards and forwards, and apparently he'd emptied he'd emptied the minibar or something, and he'd gone missing. When I got there, Andy Gray rang me. He said, "I've got to tell you, the big man's gone off." He said, "I better go look for him." I thought that. So him and Jim Walker, the physio, went out and looked for him. And they found it. How they found him, I don't know. They found him in an area. And apparently Andy said, and as soon as he walked in, they said, "Hi, Paul apparently has gone, hiya lads, have you know." And they were actually looking for him, like, you know. And Andy said, "I think I better stay with him." I went, "Oh, yeah." Yeah, that would be right, Andy. But, so there was all that to go through. And quite honestly, it was, again, I had it in my mind that maybe it's a problem that we ought to be getting rid of before anything happens. Yeah. And in fact, the first game we played at Sheffield Wednesday, he actually played right back that day. I played him right back and told him just to sit there and lump it away and head it away. Derek Manfield played Seeley, that's right. Steve Stone left back. And then the next game I moved him back in the middle. And fortunately for me, if anybody had come in and offered the sort of money that we'd had for Cascarino, I think I might have sold him. Yeah. And then after a couple of weeks, I thought, "Oh, you just had a right let off there." And I know all about things that went on, and I've consequently found out an awful lot more since. Jim Walker, our physio, was brilliant. Yeah. He was brilliant with him. He nursed him, looked after him, and in fact, in his book, Macca pays tribute to him about that.
He's almost like a counsellor, wasn't he, as well as a counsellor and a friend, as well as a physio.
Everything. He looked after him unbelievable. And I used to send, when Macca was playing for Ireland, and they always played in the afternoon in Dublin, I used to send Jim out the night before. Jim used to sleep in the corridor outside his room so he couldn't escape. And I said, after the game, Jim, as soon as the game's finished, you man mark him. You follow him in so when he goes to get his Man of the Match award. And we used to have a car park. There was a little pink pub round the corner, opposite way to where everybody was going. I said, and you get him in that and back on the 6 o'clock flight to Birmingham. And if you don't, you're sacked. And Jim used to say, "He'll be there, Gaffer."
Oh, brilliant. Do you, I think you told me this story before, Ron, about an exercise bike and McGrath.
Yeah.
Go on, let's hear that one again.
Yeah, well, the training, it's a well-known fact, Paul didn't, he was a phenomenon, really, because he was so strong and fit, you know. He really was, but didn't do the training everybody else did, but could have done. But I think if he had done, it'd have aggravated his knees more, and we needed him for matches. So we used to let him do training with the physio with Jim. And Jim said one day he's increasing the thing. He got him on the bike, pedaling away on the bike thing. And Jim said, "I'm going to alter the settings on it now, so it's going to become harder, and you're going uphill." So he sets it, Jim. Macca gets off the bike, and Jim said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, if I'm going uphill, I always will get off my bike and walk."
I love that.
But he's a super lad, and the players had that much respect for him that they knew what was going on and were prepared to tolerate, because they knew what he could do for them, and because he was such a good lad.
I think it says it all that I think it was 93, wasn't it, when he won the PFA Player of the Year. You don't see that often go to centre halves, do you?
No.
So the fact that he won that, and I suppose that must have been a source of pride for you and the team as well, hadn't it?
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else about it. People think that Macca played. I think there's some stats where in the first 4 years of the Premiership, there's only one player played as many games throughout the league. That was Peter Atherton at Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. Macca, he missed. I can only remember Paul McGrath. He missed the Liverpool game once. Exeter, he missed. I don't remember him in my time missing any other game but those two.
Yeah.
And the Exeter game, the FA Cup match, he missed. I called him in on the and he was such a shy lad. This was the thing about Macca. He was really shy. And I said, by the way, I give him a bit of a blast like I said, by the way, you're totally out of order. We played Exeter, and the next round we played at, and I lost the money, Buckley was manager, Grimsby, that's right. That was the next round of the Cup. And after the game, I'd arranged to take the players to, Tenerife. That's it, Tenerife for a few days. I said, and by the way, Macca, I want 10 grand off you. I can fine you. You give me 10 grand, or I'll fine you what I should fine you, which would be double that. But you give me 10 grand in cash. I'll give it to the skipper to take when the boys go to Tenerife, and you're not coming. Sure. Oh, sure. Which he did. No complaints.
You mentioned Phil King a while ago, talking about the penalty. I just remember the celebration with his arms aloft as if he was the king, literally the king of Villa Park. Talk us through your kind of recollections of that night.
Well, that was, that would be, I'm going to say February. So that would be within about 6 months of the Tranmere thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So we go out to Milan. Hey, shut up. We go to Milan. We go to Milan and we get beat 1-0. And it was when Teely was out the side. I bought Hugo into the side.
I don't think you're going to wake him.
I'll wake you.
I'm in a dream.
Hey, shut up. So Hugo's in the side. We get beat out there 1-0. Come back to our place and Razor. Funnily enough, Razor scored against the same goalkeeper.
In the World Cup?
Yes, the same goal.
He did a little forward roll celebration, didn't he, in the World Cup? Remember that?
Yeah. We go into the penalties thing and touch and go, hit and miss. And all of a sudden, King is going down the field and scores it. We're through, aren't we? And he's going down whistling. And I'm saying, Dino's taking his penalty. He stood by me, I think, Dino. I said, look at him. There's a few million quid on this, and he's going down whistling. Pagliuca was the goalie. Pagliuca slotted him, yeah. Totally.
And that celebration, he was just like basking in the glory of it, wasn't he? Hands aloft.
He was a character, King, yeah.
In things like that, because obviously there's the two real penalty shootouts that stick out in the mind, the Tranmere one and the Inter Milan one. How much say did you as manager or your coaching staff have on the penalty takers, the order of that? Is that something that's pre-arranged? Is that something where you're waiting for hands up on the night? Or
no, I think you put so many down, but it's like if somebody's like yesterday, if that had gone to penalties, players have gone off and you're ducking and diving, then who's taking them? I'll tell you one thing, that talking about penalties, even the year we won the Cup, all right, in the shootout, Buzzy saved a few. But prior to that, I think he saved one at Tottenham in one of the earlier rounds. Not Arsenal, somebody else. He had quite a good year that year, stopping penalties. In fact, he came on, his debut was at Blues, and the first kick he had against him was a penalty. Frayne, was
John Frayne, I remember.
Yeah, that was it. First, that was his introduction into Villa's first team. Yeah. But he saved quite a few penalties that year, Buzzy. Which went against my theory. My theory on penalties, particularly in shootouts, the goalie shouldn't move. The goalie's job is to stop the bad ones.
Yeah.
The ones that go down the middle, because in any 5, by and large, there's 2 go down the middle.
Yeah.
I say stop them, and then you might make one miracle dive in somewhere. But some of the Bosnich at Aston Villa was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the best performance I ever saw him give, I think, we beat Sunderland 4-1 away in the run, and they murdered us. They absolutely murdered us, and he was pulling off worldies from everywhere. And we were scoring worldies. I think we had 4 breakaways and scored a lot of them. And he was pulling off saves like you couldn't believe.
What was he like, Bozzy? Was he as flash as the public perception of him?
He was brash is a better word. In fact, we were talking last week with Jim Walker and myself about it was Steve Staunton. We were in Japan we went and played in a pre-season, ironically enough, the Coca-Cola tournament in Japan. And we were doing a training session on a small pitch with big goals, and Dean Sanders is whacking shots in from about 8 yards, and Buzzy's going. In the end, Dino, I always remember Dino turning and saying, "Do you beat it?" Yeah, he was at the Villa. He was an unbelievable goalkeeper. All right, the kicking thing and all that, but it's like I've just read an article from Joe Hart yesterday, where my theory has always been the goalie's first responsibility is stop the ball going in the net.
Yeah.
The rest of it is bonus. And but Buzzy's shot stopping was his goalkeeping was unbelievable. Shouldn't have gone to Man United. Should not have gone there. He'd gone out there, and because he'd left there when he was a kid. He's the only player Fergie didn't attend the signing of when he went back. Only senior player. Yeah, because he'd walked out on them.
Yeah.
Another
one I want to ask you about, Ron, just briefly, is Dwight Yorke, who I think probably in my time watching the Villa, he's probably one of the greatest entertainers. Even before we got on the pitch, he'd run half the length of the pitch juggling a ball on his head in the warm-up. I don't know, and there's a lot of Villa fans who probably haven't forgiven him for leaving Villa, and I mean, in my mind, he was vindicated because he ended up winning the treble in his first year, and I'm of the school of thought, better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. What was he like? Because you got somebody who was this real gifted flair player, but you've managed to get him to play and to perform as part of a team setup.
Yeah, well, I think when I went there, I think he'd had a couple of games in the first team. I don't think he played many. And that first game, actually, at Sheffield Wednesday, I actually played him instead of Tony Daly. I played him on the right wing because I'd got Daly and Cyril were going to be the front two for a while. And I think that was good for him because I think it enabled him to get... That year, I think he scored about 15 goals for us. My first year.
I think that was the moment where he actually knew that he'd arrived as a Premier League player and he'd got that support of his manager.
Yeah, because I still believe if Daly hadn't got injured at the Christmas time, after he scored the 2 at Sheffield Wednesday, we went to Hillsborough just before Christmas, beat them 2-1. Daly got 2 worldies, and him and Dino were on fire as a pair. I still think we'd have won the league that year because Daly didn't play again till Good Friday. He came back at Forest, I think he was Good Friday. So Yorke, he'd play 1 week on the wing, then he'd sometimes play in midfield, then he'd play, and he got the run up front when Daly got injured. But yeah, he was a very, very good player. Very good player. But, 2 or 3 years down the line, he was top drawer. What
was he like to manage, Ron?
He was the smile you saw. You always saw the smile.
Yeah,
he's an infectious lad. I think he was a bit upset that he wasn't on the bench for the cup final, but we only had one sub. No, we had 2 subs. Ray Houghton was one. And I had to make cut because we knew Steve Staunton wasn't going to go the distance. We knew Stan. at some given time so I needed a defender there. So I had Coxey, who came on at right back, and Earl switched to left back to run with Kenchelskis,
You mentioned the Dalian accident injury during that title race, if you like. When was the moment when you realised that it had kind of got away from us that year? Was it Oldham at home? Was it before then?
You know when it was?
Go on.
When Steve Bruce scored the 2 goals.
Brian Kidd's on the pitch and Fergie's on the pitch.
We'd drawn that day with Coventry at Villa Park. No score, yeah. And as I'm coming off the pitch, it was when you had to walk up the stairs to the dressing room, a fan shouted, "They're getting beat, Ron." So by the time I got to the top of the stairs, I said, "They've just equalised." And I said, "Oh."
See, even they're annoyed about it still, Ron.
I said, yeah, and I bet they play till they win. Carlton Palmer told me, Carlton played in the game. Carlton said, because the referee changed, the referee got injured and had to come off in that game. Carlton said, I went to the acting ref, said, how long's left? He said, 2 minutes of added time. He said, 6 minutes later, we're still winning. And when it came off, because we won the next 3 games, we went to Arsenal on the Monday and beat them. We then played Nottingham Forest and beat them. Then we beat Man City at our place. So, we went straight off on a run. But that was the moment I thought, oh, hang on. Because they went to Norwich and had a good win at Norwich, which I think if they'd have lost that Sheffield Wednesday game, because all the pressure was on them.
Yeah.
I actually think, you don't know, but I think the bottom would have fell out of it.
Yeah.
And obviously the Oldham, with us getting beaten home by Oldham, but I actually think just before that, that set them off on a run. They went, as I say, they wouldn't have beaten Norwich normally over there, but the confidence was flying then.
Can you still, all these years on though, you can take some degree of pride in running them close, can't you? I mean, I don't think Villa have finished second, as high as second since, have they? I don't think.
I've been in European tournaments, competitions. I've never taken part in the European Cup.
Yeah.
And yet 8 times under the present situation.
You'd have had a chance to, yeah.
8 times. So I've had, I think it's 8 top 4 finishes. Yeah. But, and then the UEFA Cup, and they were big tournaments, the Cup Winners' Cup and that, they were big tournaments. That Conference League and all that. I wish Villa are in the conference, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
In all fairness, I wish they weren't in it. If they weren't in it, I think there were certainties to... I still think they'll finish in the top 4 anyway, but the manager, I think, will... Because that's it. The European managers are more... They're more... that's a bigger thing for them.
Yeah.
Than, say, like winning the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
To do... It has more impact around in Spain and Italy and things like that,
Talk us through the evening. Was it the evening or was it the morning after when Doug summons you to say, right, Ron, that's your lot? Was it after the Wimbledon game?
Wimbledon, yeah. We got beat 4-3 and we were winning 3-1, but Andy Townsend had just got sent off right on half time or something. And I'll be quite honest, I've never ever in my career ever had the so-called vote of confidence. I've never had that. And it just got called to a board meeting. I got called early, and as soon as I walked in, he said, we've decided to part company, and that was it. And I went, okay. I'll just get my man onto it to sort it with you, and I went out. And they tell me it's the only time Doug, he left by the back door, didn't he?
I can't remember.
Because the crowd started to get wind of it and turned up apparently. we'd had a bad start to the season. We'd had a few injuries, and he wanted me to buy. He said, I said, we can't buy anybody with the money that's available that's better than what we've got. I said, and we were playing all right. Although the results weren't as good, we were playing all right. And I'm a great believer. If you're playing all right, you'll get it round. It'll come back. I said, save your money, and at the end of the season, buy big, buy 2 biggies, and then you'll pick the rest of the group up again. And one of the biggies I got lined up was Les Ferdinand from QPR. It was more of a personality clash than anything else, you know.
Did you think that you probably should have had more credit in the bank, though, in terms of you just won a trophy, 6 months previously or 8 months previously? Did it come as a surprise, or could you see the way the wind was blowing?
It came as a complete shock. I never even gave it a thought. I say gave it a thought. No. Because I had enough confidence, in me and the team to know we'd get it right. I knew we'd get it right.
Do you think it was a football decision, Ron, or do you think it was a Doug being jealous that you were kind of, as we know you to be, carrying yourself with a bit of a swagger and stuff, you're popular with the fans? Do you think it was a bit of both, or?
I always knew. I knew Doug did not, from the onset, although I've been offered the job 2 or 3 times previously, he didn't want. He would have preferred me not to have been manager at the onset.
Yeah.
But when he took it, it was people like Stridey and that were going. Stridey tried to stop him doing it.
Yeah.
I've since found out Stridey said, look, hang on for a little bit longer. Just give it a little bit more time. It's,
The only final thing I was going to ask, although we've been given a bit of a window into it anyway with Max and Mia, what's the day in the life of Ron Atkinson now? Then I know you say you're 85 next week.
Yeah. Still
looking well. Still heard your phone pinging with all your mates and all your contacts. How do you what's it like?
Well, when the weather, we got an okay day today. With the weather we've been having, I have a few trips. I would go away a bit. And unfortunately, I haven't been out playing much golf. And so we have a few meetings with a few of the guys and keep in touch. Yeah. And people say, do you miss it? And I go, loved it, had a great time. But very little regrets. And standard line is, I left school at 15, never worked since.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was used to say to the boys, this is better than work. All right, you can be anxious about things, or not anxious, but you can be a little bit worried about. But I hate it when they use the word pressure applied to people in football. Pressure is when you've got to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, go work down a pit, or I know they don't do that anymore, but that's pressure, or when you can't afford your bills and whatever. Turning up at a football training ground, mainly in nice cars like they do, and have the lifestyle, it would annoy me. All right, I'm not. A lot of people say, like the money now. Do you wish you? No, I don't. Full marks to them, particularly the players that earn the big money. Don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with players that earn big money and really don't put it back in.
Yeah.
That would drive me up the wall. But we had a great time. People of my ilk, people in my generation. I met great people. Yeah, I met some great people. Whenever we get together, mind there's a few of them I don't want to meet too soon now. But, yeah.
You don't envy the likes of Neil Warnock, who's still trying to hang in, and Roy Hodgson, who has been until recently was still managing.
No. I mean,
you don't miss the adrenaline buzz that much.
No. There was possibly a time when I wouldn't have minded shall we say, a sort of executive
like
role,
a director of football type thing.
Like that, yeah. I think I could have been helpful to somebody in that respect. But Once said to Neil Warnock, nobody likes you except me, and I can't stand it.
No, well, listen, Ron, it's been an absolute pleasure taking us on a trip down memory lane. I think we're hoping that Villa, that the good times are coming back, but you'll always hear, certainly fans of my generation, always using the Ron Atkinson years as the barometer, really, in terms of entertainment, in terms of atmosphere.
That's we had a good. I'll tell you what, though, and I said I've been watching Villa since 1948. The day war broke out. I've never ever seen a Villa team, my team, the Ron Sanders team, or whatever, play better than Villa did when they beat Man City this year. I thought that was an unbelievable performance. I was watching, I thought, they're terrific. I think they've got a very good squad at the moment. Hopefully nothing happens to Ollie, because I think they might have a problem there if they have a centre forward problem. I'm not too sure who could stand in for them there. But
so you're kind of an adopted Villa fan from afar now.
Oh well, I was a Villa fan as a kid anyway. So yeah, it was always my club. Yeah. People say, "What's the big improvements?" I mean, I look at pitches now, and that's the biggest improvement to me, the standard of pitches.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at Villa, who did we play? It got really muddy like pitches did in the middle. So Doug had this good idea of painting the pitch green, putting green paint on it. And the players were coming off at half-time looking like Shrek. Who was that? That might have been the Arsenal. I'm trying to think who he was. Oh, yeah.
That's so Doug, isn't it? It's like I say, it's been an absolute pleasure. Happy anniversary for the 30 years of winning the cup, and happy birthday for next week, Ron. And thanks so much for inviting us here to have a good natter. We've really enjoyed it.
And my quiz question is: who's the only English manager to win a major trophy with 3 different clubs? Problem.
I wonder, is it Big Ron Atkinson by any chance?
We have a right laugh. I say, go on then.